Hey folks, everything new under the sun. We live in a time when Bible prophecy is being fulfilled, and we know there's a specific timeline, Matthew 24, Luke 21, Ezekiel 38, 39. They all describe times and things that are going to happen in the last days before the return of Christ, including the four horsemen of the apocalypse out of Revelation 6, and just a lot of things happening. And they include the collapse of society, famine, economic collapse, and they include a world government coming to power that promises to save the world from everything. The world needs a savior, and that is Jesus Christ. But again, pattern equals prophecy. We know the Jews will be looking for a savior, and they will accept the Antichrist. The world will be looking for a savior, and they will accept the Antichrist, just like the Jews during the 7-year period. And they will accept that Antichrist at a time when there is a civil unrest, civil collapse, when the economy has absolutely collapsed, when no one can afford food, when there is war among the nations and between kingdoms. And that's exactly what the Bible describes with the last days. The four horsemen of the apocalypse are exactly that: war, violence, economic collapse, famine. Go read Revelation chapter 6, and described therein are those items. And so we're coming upon them soon. This is the timeline of the return of the Lord that you're looking at. It's not 100% accurate, and I kind of move it along as new evidence comes up. But I think we're very close to that time where that 7-year period is going to kick off. And let's have a look at some headlines which sort of deal with that scenario. So the first one really is the pestilence, the idea of pestilence, and of course what happened, for the last 3 years, and the fact that things were pushed upon us, and we are coerced into doing things that we didn't want to, that are now causing harm to people, physical harm. And so this idea, this is from Natural News, this banning of off-label uses for medications, this falls right in with that whole idea. And you can read the headline there. Look at the first one, not just whatever. And you can see that the government wants to control everything, and they're not going to allow you to use any medicine that they don't think that they don't want you to use for something that may well work for quite well. It might be quite efficacious, but because they have a different thing they want you to use, they're not going to let you use that particular one. So this is not about the particular thing in the subject there. This is more of a general idea that if you need something, get it now, because you may not be able to get it in the future. You may not be able to buy it in the future. The government may restrict you from using something in the future, so you'll want to stockpile maybe some of that stuff. Various sorts of things that will help you get healthy. You may want to stockpile those things before they make them illegal. That includes for your livestock, for your chickens, your pigs, your horses, all these sorts of things, because the government is coming down and saying, you can't use these things unless the powers that be say that you can use them for such and such a purpose. So that's a big deal as the supply chain tightens. Not only is the supply chain itself getting worse and worse, but the government's coming down and saying, oh, you may be able to access something, but we will not let you access it because you're using it for unintended purposes, right? Incredible. Ransomware attack on Dole causes shortage of salad in groceries. Now, this is just one amongst many cyber attacks that has been happening, the blowing up of pipelines, the blowing up of oil depots and propane facilities, natural gas facilities, ransomware attacks across many different companies, attacks on substations and the electrical grid. This is all, it's either just complete terrorism, or maybe it's related to the greater worldwide event that's happening, World War III. You don't know, but this has really got the potential to take down huge things. You don't have to kill anybody in World War III. All you have to do is take away their food, take away their electronics, take away their communication, remove their ability to drive places, and you have them begging on hands and knees then for whatever you have. And this is what's going to happen prior to the Antichrist and prior to people accepting the Antichrist. We're going to be so desperate that pretty much everybody will have no other choice but to accept the Antichrist. And they will. They will accept him happily when things get that bad. And so I had a certain case where a particular, in my 9 to 5, I had a particular case where someone was involved in a ransomware attack. Thankfully, they had a database that they backed up, but everything else was lost, and they couldn't pay the requested value for that data. And so this is quite a common thing now, ransomware, and it could happen to you, it could happen to me, it could happen to anybody. Normally, they're going to go after larger companies who can maybe pay out more, but as nation states get into this, they're not going to be looking for money anymore. They're just going to be encrypting all your data and not giving you the key to get that. They're just going to be destroying your company. So on to other news here. Kremlin, West pumping weapons into Ukraine. Oh, it could bring the apocalypse. Isn't that what we were talking about in this day and age? Absolutely. And I think this is coming. Again, read Revelation 6, read Matthew 24. These things speak of the last days. War, famine, pestilence, economic collapse, and all those things are spoken of in the Bible, and that's what we're coming upon. Now, interesting thing as it relates to Moldova, if you're Canadian, by the way, you can go to travel.gc.ca. This is Moldova travel as example. And this is right on the southern border of Ukraine. And your government will have similar things, but you can see here Transnistria. Avoid all travel. The Canadian government doesn't want you to go there because you may not be able to get consular services. You may not be able to get out of there. They may not be able, the Canadian government may not be able to help you if you go there. And of course, Transnistria is where the ammunition depot is, which the Ukrainians are lining up across the border to take. And the Russians want to protect this. So this is the next battleground, Transnistria, which again is a strip of land between Moldova, originally Moldovan land, between Moldova and the bottom or southern Ukraine, part of Ukraine. Moldova itself, greater Moldova, is just an exercise, a high degree of caution, but we know that planes, at least one, I think it's Wizz airline, has already said as of March 14th, they're going to stop flights into Moldova because of the danger of war. Is March 14th an interesting date? Well, it could be. Maybe they know something more than you or I, or maybe they're just setting an arbitrary date for when something could happen in Transnistria as it relates there, and maybe civil unrest and other trouble could happen. But pay attention to these travel websites if you're going anywhere. This is RT. Russia Today. Blinken issues warning to China. Top U.S. diplomat says Washington would not hesitate to target Chinese companies or individuals who violate Russian sanctions, and they're going to make sanctions against China. So U.S. is really biting the hand that feeds it, in a way, in terms of cheap goods, cheap manufacturing. And now we're going against China for supplying Russia weapons, even though the U.S. has been supplying Ukraine weapons for the last year and a half. It's incredible. The U.S. is basically going to war against Russia and China. Not a lot of people are on board with this, but they can't do a lot until they vote out the current administration. But this is the way things are going. This is an older story. This is actually from Reuters. The date is January 28th. A U.S. four-star general warns of war with China in 2025. And maybe that's actually sooner, the way things are going. If we're in 2023, and this is where we're at right now, China's already supplying Russia with munitions and weapons of war. That means we're basically at war with China right now. Now, this is more about the Taiwan Strait situation, Taiwan itself. But I think, at this point in time, most people would agree we're basically at war in World War III against Russia and China now, and U.S. is dragging everybody into this war, whether or not we like it. This is American military news. North Korea threatens declaration of war with the U.S. if military drills continue. So is there anyone not declaring war, overtly or otherwise against the U.S.? Seems everybody is coming out against the U.S. And the U.S. is now fighting 2, 3, 4 different battles, if not more. You got to include the Israeli-Iranian conflict as well that U.S. is backstopping. So does U.S. have the ability, the funds, the wherewithal, and do they have the interest of the people to support all these wars? And I would suggest to you that, in fact, they don't. And what happens in Ezekiel 38 and 39? Well, you have the young lions of Tarshish, which some people, I think, I do believe, suggest, and I believe the suggestion that it could refer to the United States, for example, at the United Nations, calling out Russia or whomever it is from the north that comes, with the hook in the jaw and comes on Israel to take spoil, to take cash and goods and food. It's the young lions of Tarshish that are saying, why have you come and marched into the land of Israel? And they're asking questions, but they're not doing anything. So that tells me that NATO, the West, maybe the United States specifically, either don't have the willpower or don't have the ability at that point in time to go to war and help Israel at that time. And that, to me, speaks of economic collapse, or maybe they've lost in World War, or something else has went on, maybe a massive EMP that's taken the West, especially North America, out from the world stage. And so they're not doing anything physically in the Middle East anymore. And so that's an interesting little piece of detail out of Ezekiel 38 and 39, which, again, I think do happen before the 7-year period. I have the War of Gog-Magog. You can see the bottom middle red arrow there in between Isaiah 17, destruction of Damascus, and the rebuilding of the third temple. I think there's a sequence there. I think there's a bunch of things that go down there. Destruction of Damascus happens because that's what Israel's right now hitting in Syria, as it's battling Iranian proxy agents and munitions delivery to its proxy via the Damascus airport. And there's a base there of the Iranians. So Israel is hitting Damascus right now, just the southern parts of it, the outskirts of it. And ultimately they will say, that's it. We got to take this once and for all. And the destruction of Damascus, as prophesied in Isaiah 17, will occur. It is the longest standing city in history, basically, scholars believe. And so this destruction has not happened yet in the history of the world. So this is a yet future event, Isaiah 17. And then come Ezekiel 38, where apparently the neighbors from the north, the invading countries, they have no hesitation to march on Israel. And there is no one stopping them. Not the West, not NATO. And you would think if that were today, then NATO and the West would do something about that, but they're not. And speaking of Iran and the situation there, this is from jpost.com, Jerusalem Post. Iran can make fissile material for a bomb in about 12 days. Now, the date of this is March 1st. Iran has enough fissile material for one nuclear bomb, and the time range is about 12 days. A top U.S. Defense Department official said on Tuesday, down from estimated 1 year it would have taken while the 2015 Iranian nuclear deal was in effect. So we have about less than 2 weeks now when I would suggest that you pay attention for some Israeli strikes. Now, there was a strike apparently on what seemed like a convoy, maybe moving some centrifuges at a nuclear facility in Iran, or at least a centrifuge facility, something along those lines. Air defenses were going off in Iran. That was one of the breaking videos a couple days ago. And so that could have been part of it, and that's not all of it yet. I think Israel's going to do some more there, because Israel has come out and stated, Netanyahu himself, that Israel would not put up with a nuclear-armed Iran. They would not let Iran have a weapon like that, so they will take it out before Iran gets it. So if they have enough material to make a bomb in 12 days, that suggests that you should be watching the headlines, watching the news for some sort of covert or overt strike, maybe, over the next week and a half, because they're likely going to do something. So I would say watch out for an Iranian strike and Folks, if that happens, that could open a can of worms for Russia coming into Syria, maybe backing up Iran, maybe the invasion of Israel, and maybe the hook in the jaw is when Israel goes after Iran and then neighbors from the north invade Israel in retaliation. And I think that's all part of what's happening. And this world, there's wars everywhere between all countries, and the similar connection piece between each of them seems to be in some way the United States. And but the United States is not named in Bible prophecy. Why is that? Are they taken out with an electromagnetic pulse or with nuclear weapons? Something removes the United States as the world superpower that has been the world superpower for what, last 250 years, whatever it is. Well, maybe not last 250 years. I guess their currency is that old, but maybe since World War II. The current superpower, they're not named at all in Bible prophecy, other than maybe some mentions of an eagle or the young lions of Tarshish, some kind of side references to them possibly. But the fact that they're not there, and it's not obvious that they're there, and even if they are there, they're not doing a lot, suggests that they are wiped out in some future battle. Are we on the precipice of that future battle? Things are heating up, folks. End-time Bible prophecy, I believe, is coming to pass, and we're watching it before our eyes, and things are going to get real crazy, really tough for us, to the point where we will be starving and hungry and in such desperate state that most of the people in Canada, in the United States, will call for a savior, and they will accept the Antichrist and accept the mark of the beast system, because he comes in and promises peace and security and food and economic restoration. If you simply take the mark, I will fix everything for you. And people will hurrah, and that's what they will vote for. But those who read their Bibles will know there's something else going and will not accept that. And it's going to be a hard time for anybody who does not accept it, because you will not be able to participate in the economic system. And if you eat anything, you've probably paid for that, whatever that food is. You probably have property taxes to pay. You won't be participating in the economy if you don't accept the mark of the beast at this point in time, which means you won't have a house, you won't have a car, you won't have insurance. You won't be able to, you will be basically an illegal person. There will be warrants out for your arrest because you're squatting on someone else's land. You'll have liens against all your property and such. You won't be able to buy food. The best you'll be able to do is maybe glean from the corners of farmers' fields who have accepted the mark. Maybe they will let you eat or something there. But it's going to be a hard life, folks. I got to tell you, and I got to warn you, and you need to be prepared for that. I'll leave it there. This video is getting long. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.